Namaskar students. In today's video, we will discuss the term fraud according to the Indian Contract Act 1872. So what happens when there is a contract made? Before that, there are parties which are involved that in the contract that we have already discussed that there are two parties. Are there in the contract, right? Now, these parties, when they are talking through the contract, they are making certain stipulations, or you can say that they are making certain statements to each other, right? For example, we assume that there are two parties named as A and B, and they are making certain statements. Some of the statements which they are making to each other, they may be true in nature, while some of the statement may also be false in nature, right? So some of them can be true and few of them may be false also, right? So when making false statement, that may be intentionally made or that may be unintentionally made, right? So you may intentionally make a false statement, or you may unintentionally, means not knowingly, and intentionally means knowingly when you making the false statement. When you knowingly make a false statement, it is known as fraud, and when you unknowingly make a false statement, we call that as misrepresentation, right? So this is what this particular meaning suggests here, that it is an intentional misrepresentation. Intentional misrepresentation means you are misrepresenting the facts, right, with the intention, which is you're telling a lie, you're making a false statement intentionally, or what you're doing, you're concealing the material fact. What you're concealing, what you're doing, you're hiding. What you're hiding the most important aspect. Material fact means most important facts or the information related to the subject matter, right? So what is the subject matter that we have already discussed in the previous videos also? That for example, if you wish to buy a car from the other party, right? That car is the subject matter. What is the material fact? What is the most important fact related to that car, right? So that will make the material fact of that agreement. For example, the engine of the car is the most important aspect, or whatever criteria you set in your agreement. According to that, you can decide the material facts, right? So it depends. Now, what is a fraud? Fraud is a word that we hear in our day-to-day life also, that somebody is defrauding the other one or something like that. But what is the meaning of fraud, which is given under the Indian Contract Act? That when you are concealing something or you are intentionally making a false statement, why you doing so? You want to get into an agreement. And what is your intention? Your intention is to deceive the other party. Your intention is to induce the other party so that the other party gets into an agreement with you. So this is the meaning of fraud here. Next we move to the features or the essentials or the characteristics of fraud. So first is that a fraud may be committed by the parties to the contract. So it's an important thing to understand that, for example, the parties to the contract, there are A and B, right? We will only consider fraud. According to the Indian Contract Act if the parties are defrauding, if one of the party is defrauding the other, right, in the agreement. If some third party is defrauding A, or if some third party is defrauding B, then we will not consider fraud here under the Indian Contract Act. It will be taken under the other act, but it will not be considered under the Indian Contract Act. So we will only consider fraud as fraud if when the parties to the contract, which is A and B here in this case, if any of the party defraud the others, we will assume that it is a case of fraud under the Indian Contract Act. This is one. So the next point is the fraudulent acts. What is the meaning of fraudulent act? Fraudulent act which the ICA suggests, the Indian Contract Act suggests, that anything will be considered fraud if that is matching up with all or any of these points, right? So first is means anything is considered or regarded as fraud if it is a false statement, then it is a fraud according to the ICA, Indian Contract Act. If it is an active concealment of the fact, then it is a fraud. If it is a promise which you do not want to perform, then also it is a fraud. If any other activity which is considered or regarded as fraud will be treated as fraud under ICA, and any kind of declared fraudulent act, right? So we should understand what is the meaning. First is false statement. What is false statement? False statement means you are stating something and you know that you are telling a lie, right? And that whatever false statement you are making, it is related to the very important aspect of the subject matter, right? Means it is very important. For example, you wish to sell a car and the engine of the car is not working properly, there is a defect in the engine, and you are telling a lie related to that. So you are telling a lie which is related to the material fact. Material fact means which is related to the important facts or of the subject matter. Then second one is that you are actively concealing the fact. You are actively concealing the fact means you are doing something, you are making some effort in order to hide the information in the subject matter. You are concealing the facts from the other party. Then also this kind of example is also treated as fraud. Any promise which you are making which you never want to perform, like for example somebody makes a promise, A and B, two people are there, A makes a promise to B and which A never wish to perform it, then also it is treated or regarded as fraud, right? Any other act which comes under the category of fraud. So any other act which comes under the category of fraud means, say for example, now see, people are coming up with day to day, every day or maybe in every time they are coming up with new kind of fraudulent activities, right? So it is not possible for the Indian Contract Act to define and give the exact word to word definition of fraud. So what they said, that along with these four things, right, they also said that any act means activity, it means activity here. Any activity which is considered or which comes under the category of fraud, right, we will consider that as fraud. We will define that or we will categorize that activity as fraudulent activity, right? So because people are coming up with new example of fraudulent acts, and they are defrauding with a new kind of activities every day in the day-to-day life. So therefore ICA suggests that we cannot put word by word and we cannot define exactly what fraud means, because people may come with new kind of activity in order to deceive the other party. So therefore any kind of activity which fits into the category of fraud, as per by taking other other assumption of fraud, like for example if it was a false statement, if it was actively concealing something, or if it is not, it is a promise which is performing which is not to be performed by the party, then we will regard that particular activity as fraudulent activity. I hope it is clear. Fraudulent act. What is the meaning of declared fraudulent act? It means that see, there is some kind of activity or there is some kind of agreement which any particular specific act suggests that it will be treated as fraudulent activity if the related aspects are not fulfilled. For example, we can take the example of the buying of just a second. We take the example of buying the house property. Okay, buying the house property, right? So it is obviously the Transfer of Property Act suggests that both the parties, especially the seller, suppose B is the seller should disclose each and everything to the buyer. If it is a transaction of buying the house property, in this case the every party, both the parties, especially the seller who is selling the property, he should disclose the details to the buyer. So it is, if in this situation, in this case, if the seller does not disclose the details, in that case it is considered to be a declared fraudulent act, right? So this is one of the example. So these 5 factors are considered as fraud according to the Indian Contract Act. So they have defined the meaning of fraud by saying that false statement, active concealing, promise not to be performed, any specific fraud which cannot be categorized earlier, which is not categorized earlier, and declared fraudulent act will be treated as a fraudulent activity. So this is there. Next one is intention to deceive. So intention to deceive intention to deceive means when you are saying that there is a case of fraud, there has to be intention of deceiving one person. When he is saying that this person has defrauded me, there has to be intention of this person to deceive A, right? And A should prove that B has had the intention to deceive me and he has actually induced me to get into agreement. So there has to be intention to defraud the other party, right? And the next one is the party must have suffered out of that, and because B has defrauded A, A has actually suffered some kind of monetary loss out of it. So this is what, if all these things are fulfilled, then we will consider that particular activity as fraudulent activity.